Hello everybody, and welcome to the Historical Sew-Along series, where we'll take you through the ins and outs of some simple historical sewing projects to build up your wardrobe and your hand skills. Maybe even both at the same time. From prep work to finished product, we'll do it together, following step-by-step instructions with some tips and tricks sprinkled in along the way. This series is meant for all skill levels, but it is especially nice for beginners to build confidence while building a solid toolkit of techniques. With all of that said, feel free to pause, rewind, rewatch, and fast forward to whichever parts you need as many times as necessary. So let's get to the good stuff.
Hey everybody, Christina here with Burnley and Trowbridge, and you're joining us today for what will be the first in 3 videos in our cap sew-along.
Hello.
Hey Angela, what are you doing here?
Well, I knew that you needed someone to demonstrate what the caps look like.
Yeah.
But I have the perfect model for you.
Tell me more.
Okay. Her name is Maggie.
Okay.
And she has a gorgeous face.
Oh, I love gorgeous faces.
And the perfect head for the one that I made.
Okay, the Lappet one. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah. So I'll bring her up and you can see how she looks in it.
It sounds good. I'm excited. This is going to be great.
I'll go get her.
Yes.
Look at you. Oh, yeah, she's a pretty girl.
Well, now that you have seen our 2 cap styles on our 2 very lovely models, I'm sure you all know exactly which cap style will suit you best. So once you've decided, go ahead and you want to print your pattern. You're going to tape it together just like we did for the bedgown pattern, for the pocket pattern, and once that's done, we're going to go ahead and cut it out. So for this sew-along, I'm going to go ahead and make the lappet cap. So it's going to be this band right here. I'm going to cut out my caul, and you'll notice there isn't a ruffle on the pattern. That's because the ruffle we're just going to cut using geometry, so we'll discuss that when we get there. Now that I have both of my pieces cut out, I'm going to grab my fabric, and the caps that you saw in the live and that are on the website, those are made out of our cambric, so that's a really nice linen. But for today, I'm actually going to be using our narrow striped muslin, and this is still available on the website as of the date below, so if you want to order some of this for your cap, you can go ahead and do that. You do want to pay close attention to the pattern because there are a couple of places that you can cut on the fold. One of those places will be the caul, and you really probably do want to cut on the fold there so that your caul is in one piece. So to put this on a fold, what I'm going to do is just kind of get a rough estimate there. That's about where I'm going to want to fold to. And that's just going to help me make sure that I don't waste any on this section of my fabric. And now you can see when I put my caul down that it comes just to the inner part of the selvage there to the bottom. I don't have to worry about seam allowance with this pattern. Your seam allowance is actually included, so all of your pieces, your band and your caul, don't worry about adding anything. You're just going to cut it directly as is on the pattern, and then you'll just hem it when we get to that part, probably in the next video. So I'm going to grab my pins. You could use pattern weights here, I guess, too. I don't have any. I'm just going to pin it to my muslin. Try to keep it as flat as you can while you're doing this. You don't want to have a lot of bubbles in there. All right, once our caul is pinned, we're going to go ahead and cut this piece out. I'm gonna set this to the side. Next, we're gonna go ahead and cut our band. And now you can see here that the band is meant to be cut on the fold, which will give you one long piece for your band. However, if you notice my fabric, I have a little bit of a problem. It's not quite long enough for me to cut it on the fold and maintain the directionality of my stripe. So I'm going to do a very 18th century thing as the solution to that. I'm going to go ahead and just piece my band. Once it's pinned in place, we can go ahead and cut. All right, so I have given myself a little bit of a seam allowance here. You can see it's just about 1/8 of an inch or so. If you are piecing your band like I'm going to be, you do want to make sure to leave a little bit of seam allowance at the top section that would typically have been placed on the fold. Leave what you're comfortable with. If 1/8 of an inch seems a little too much for you and you're like, oh, I can't make it that small right now, that's fine. Go ahead and do, say, like 1/4 of an inch. I wouldn't go too much higher than that because you don't want that seam to get bulky at the center of the cap there on your band, but make it as small as you are comfortable with. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we do not have a pattern piece for the ruffle. That's because it's really just a long, skinny rectangle. And if you look on your band piece here, it will say fork ruffle, cut 1 strip of fabric 1 3/4 inches wide by 60 inches long. The fabric that I'm using today is not 60 inches wide. If you are lucky enough to be using 60-inch wide fabric, you only have to cut 1 strip and then you're done. I'm going to be cutting 2 strips and I will piece my ruffle together. I'm using, like I said, that really fine narrow stripe cotton muslin, which means I can tear my fabric, so that's kind of nice. If you are using a linen, I would not recommend tearing your linen. I would recommend pulling a thread and then cutting, just like we've done in the petticoat sew along, in the shift sew along, pretty much most of the time when we're using linen. Later on, when you're making different caps, you can change the size of the ruffle if you want to, but for this sew along, we're going to stick to what's in the instructions. So I have borrowed a measuring tape from Angela, because she's a great boss. I'm going to go ahead and measure out 1 3/4 inches and make a cut. And then I can just tear it. I love that sound. I'll do that one more time and that will give me just enough to make my ruffle, and I'll have a little bit left over as well. That might be something good for making, say, a matching tucker or a pair of sleeve ruffles in the future. All right, so now I have my 2 long rectangular pieces for my ruffle. I have my pieces or piece for my band, depending on if you cut it on the fold or you're piecing that together. And I have my caul. What I would recommend before we move on for next week is to go ahead and give these all a really good press if you haven't yet. So run them through, say, like an iron, smooth everything out, especially if you're using a muslin and you tore your ruffle pieces. It's going to make it a little easier to work with. Once your pieces are cut, that is it for this week. So stay tuned for part 2 where we will actually start our stitching. So if you want to brush up on your stitches, go ahead and look at the rolled whip gather, look at the hem stitch, which we've had lots of practice with before, and probably a running stitch too. You might have some of that we're doing in here. As always, don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so that way you get notifications when video 2 goes live. And in the meantime, don't forget to check out our new website with a fresh new look and new product going up, well, just about every week. So we'll see you next time.